Hello there folks, thanks very much for coming to watch us. We've got a better day here in Islay today, so we've come out to have a look at the barley and show you the differences and what we're doing this year. We have grown two varieties of barley this year, so we grew our experimental crop, well, experimental for us, Diablo, which is the first time we've grown it, and we grew our go-to barley, which is Concerto. In this field we've got them grown side by side, so from our point of view we can compare them. So they're in the same soil, planted in the same day, same fertilisers, etc. So they've been treated exactly the same, and the Concerto is on my right. And it's looking well, it's coming on well, it's got a good head. The straw's shorter this year, that's probably due to the fact that it had a very dry start, then we had some really wet weather, so it wasn't ideal growing conditions for the barley, but it's looking okay. We're probably, I would say, 2 weeks away from harvesting. It's still a bit green, the heads are up, but they've not bent over, and the heads aren't particularly, the grains aren't very hard yet. Catherine will give you a wee close up, and if you look to my left, this is our Diablo crop. This is typically what we're seeing through the farm. So this crop it's a good crop, there's nothing wrong with the crop, but there are differences between it and the Concerto. So if you look at the head of the Diablo, it's nice and clean, there's not a long wrong with it. You see the grains there, there's about 20, 22, 24 grains in a head, which is good. So for the year we've had, we're quite pleased with that. But then if you compare it directly with the Concerto, oops, just going to get confusing it, hang on. So you can see that if you look like for like, the Concerto's maybe got a grain or two less, but it's a bigger, bolder grain in the Concerto. And if you just compare it through, so this is a Concerto, you can see that the Concerto's done better, in my opinion, than I would say the Diablo. So while we're still looking for a replacement for the Concerto, unfortunately it's not Diablo. But this still will make very good whisky, and we're still happy with what we'll get off it. Just now the crop's got a reasonable amount of potential, but it's not until we get it into a trailer that we'll know exactly what we've got, and we'll give you an update after the harvest about what's actually happened, because when it's standing in the field it's all lovely and well, but until we actually get the combine through it, we don't know what we've got. But hopefully we'll manage to get the harvest done within the next kind of fortnight, if the weather's there. There's a long way to go at the moment till we get it into a trailer and we get it fine and safe in the harvest. So we've explained that we're growing two different varieties this year, and again that's to find a replacement for Concerto. This isn't the first time we've done it. Last year we grew a variety called Sassy, which did well, but unfortunately the Concerto grew better for us, and the previous year we did Laureate as well, and it grew okay, but again unfortunately we haven't found anything that can really compete with Concerto. Concerto is meant to be coming to the end of its commercial life, so the reason that we plant these additional crops or different variety is there's two reasons for it. One, we're trying to replace Concerto, and the other that Anthony's playing around a bit with the flavours and seeing what flavours and stuff that we get from the barley. If you've watched some of Anthony's previous videos, he's explained about off the spirit still there's a difference in flavours between the different varieties, which is great, but as it goes into a cask and is matured, you lose that difference as the wood takes over from it. So as I say, we're looking to provide the distillery with a good crop of barley, a grain that we can work with, and a grain that will get a light floral flavour from. We've had a few questions about around the barley, about how much barley, how much spirit we get from a ton. Depends which ton you're talking about, because in the field here we're looking to combine. If we can get the combine running through the barley at 18%, we're quite happy. If it's lower than that, that's fantastic. And when I talk about 18%, I'm talking about the moisture content. What I've seen is combining at 20, 22, 24%, and the reason we take it is because we know the weather's going to be bad and the crop's ready, and what happens is the wind shakes the stalks and the grain falls off and we lose the grain. So we have to make a decision at sometimes that we're going to take a wetter barley in order to get the crop. And the reason we don't like the barley so wet is because when we grow to dry it down, we use more energy to dry it down, because we're trying to store that barley off the field around 10-11%, because it'll store long term for us in a shed at that, and also if we can't dry it straight away, it'll heat, and if we put it in a heat, it'll heat and it'll spoil a lot quicker. So ideally, if we can get 18% or less when it's going through the combine, we're very happy. Then it's dried down to about 10% and it's put into long-term storage. We generally combine September time, and then we'll be looking to use that barley from beginning of March, April the following year. So it has to keep for a long time before we put it through the malting process. The malting process, as you know, involves wetting the barley, putting peat with it, and then we dry that down further to 5%. So a ton in the field, actually, by the time you get it through the drying processes, the various drying processes, we'll end up with about 800 kilos of malt that we can work with. We usually like to say that we would like to get around 400 litres of alcohol for a tonne of malted barley. But a tonne of malted barley will be about 1.2 tonne plus in the field by the time we take all the losses into account. So I hope that answers your question and explains what we're trying to do with it. There have also been a couple of questions around, does the soil make a difference to the flavour of the barleys? Not in our opinion. We think that the grain certainly has an impact off the still, but the soil, we haven't found that the soil has an impact on the flavours of the spirit still. So we would say no to that question. Okay, we've moved to try and give you a view of some of the barley fields that we'll be doing this year. So if you look over my shoulder, we have the Minister's Field there, and that's got Concerto in it. To the left of the Minister's Field is the House Field. Again, that's a field of Concerto. If you look over towards the Papsadura, you can see the distance. I don't know if Catherine's camera will manage to zoom in there. Anyway, the stripes in the field is where the boys are about to go to silage. That's the Stonehouse Field where we compared the two varieties. If we swing round to here, we've got the Rugby Park Field, and lastly we've got the Macri Field. Macri Field is a field of Diablo barley, so this is our experimental crop for this year, or experimental for us. So once we combine that, it'll be held back and it'll be held separately and kept separate all the way through the process. So at some point in the not too distant future, I dare say Anthony will be doing a tasting with this year's barley varieties, comparing Concerto to Diablo. And now, just because it doesn't harvest or give us the bulk harvest that we're looking for compared to Concerto, when it goes through the distilling process, it might give us lovely light flavours that Anthony's looking for, and we might turn to Diablo due to its flavour profile when it's actually distilled. So just watch this space. We'll keep you updated with how things go, and we also need to see how it reacts with the wood in the cask as well. So we've got notes of these things for the last few years, and we're just playing about with it and experimenting so as we can bring you the best spirit that we can possibly bring. Now we're hoping to go to the Barley in about a week, 10 days, and we'll keep you updated with that and how the harvest's going on. Catherine will give you regular updates online, so keep a look at our Facebook and our Instagram, and she'll let you know how harvest's going. Hopefully we get dry weather and no rain.